All right, how's it going, everybody? My name is Omar Thabet, and this is another video on Motivate Me 313. And so today I'm going to talk about three topics that are at the forefront in the United States of America. The three topics are the Black Lives Matter movement, police, and racism. And I figured today's a good day to discuss these topics since it is 4th of July. By the way, happy 4th of July to everybody out there that is celebrating. Hope you guys enjoy it. So anyways, I'm going to be looking back and forth because I got two cameras here, so I just want to give you guys a heads up. So with that said, there's a few things that I want to say before we continue talking. And this is going to be a long video. I already know. I can kind of have an idea of what I wrote down. So if you want to bear with me, you can watch later. But there's some things that I just want to share and kind of just get going, okay? So first and foremost, I do want to mention that this is my opinion. I'm not saying that this is right. I'm not saying that this is wrong. But it is my opinion, and that's all it is, you know. So I just want people to understand that this is my opinion for what I'm about to share. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. And then I also want to say that this has nothing to do with my work, which is at Hanley International Academy, or even my family. They may not agree with what I have to say, but at the end of the day, again, this is me. So if you don't agree with what I gotta say, judge me. If you do agree with what I gotta say, that's great, but at the end of the day, again, this is my opinion, so base it off of me and no one else. And so my work environment and my family have nothing to do with this. Another thing I want to mention is that I love the United States of America. You know, this is my country. At the end of the day, I've lived here my whole life. I represent this country. I am proud to be a Yemeni American. Both of those things. I mentioned both because I am both of those things. So I just want people to understand that, you know, I'm happy to have been born here. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. If I was living in Yemen, I would not have the opportunities that I have now. The living conditions there is nowhere near the living conditions over here. You know, at the end of the day, over here, we may have first world problems. Over there, there's third world problems. It really just doesn't even compare. So I just want people to understand that I do love America. This is my country. I am proud to be from here. But I love it so much, and I love the everything about it, that I want it to continue to always be great. I want it to continue to be amazing and be the country that we know that it can be. So this is why I am sharing what I am sharing, and I am talking about what I am talking about. And the first topic I want to talk about is the Black Lives Matter movement, okay? First of all, I just want to mention that I am not the voice of the black people. I do not represent the black people. I am a supporter of the black people. I am a proud supporter of the black people. To me, it's disrespectful to say that I represent the black community. I am Arabic. I am not black. There are plenty of strong-minded black individuals out there, women and men, who represent the black community way better than I do. That's like how, kind of, in a way, I kind of feel like that's how Hollywood would say, hey, you know, we have this black cultural movie, and then they have a white character or a brown character playing that main role in the movie. You know, it's not right, and I think it's disrespectful to the black culture. You know, so in my opinion, at the end of the day, you know, like I said, I am a Black Lives Matter supporter, and that does not mean that I am the face of the black community, and I want to make sure that you guys understand that. But with that said, since I am a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, I do want to say this. I am so proud of everything that has happened. I am disappointed that in 2020, I know I kind of mentioned this before, that in 2020, that the Black Lives Matter and people, the black community, feel like that they have to prove a point and they have to get their voices heard. But at the end of the day, talking about the movement, talking about everything that has happened, I am so proud of the black community. I feel like they, as a collective group, are finally realizing their strength, their power, and their true potential that they have. For those that are wonder why I speak on this, the black people don't only just deal with racism in America. That's what people gotta kind of have the wrong idea. Black people deal with racism all across the world. Wherever black people are a minority, in the Middle East, Europe, South America, North America, they are dealing with racism. And that's just facts. America is just the most powerful country And they are the ones, you know, at the end of the day, America is just the most powerful and the most talked about country. Everybody wants to know what America is doing at the end of the day. So that's why all of the problems, all of our problems in America are magnified and front and center, or else almost every country is going through their own racism problems. Okay? So the reason I sympathize so much with the black people, and the reason why I feel like I have to speak out, is because of this. They've dealt with the most issues out of any race longer than anybody for the longest period of time. And I don't care what you have to say. Their problems go back hundreds and hundreds, and you can maybe even say thousands. I'm not a history expert, but their problems go back hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe even longer. Us people of color, you know, Mexicans, Arabics, and people like that, we are dealing with new problems in America, but at the end of the day, the black people have dealt with problems longer than anyone. And their list of problems are also longer than anyone else's as well. Here's just a few of them. This is not everything, but this is just a few of them just off the top of my head and what I've written down. They got to deal with police brutality. They have to deal with racism. They had to deal with slavery, unjust school systems, unjust government systems. They have to deal with poverty. They have to deal with a system of a criminal justice, a justice system that does not favor them and kind of looks down upon them. So when you see, this is what I try to explain to people when I talk to them, and when there were riots going on about a few weeks ago. So when you see that there are people rioting, and you know, the black people rioting in the streets, although I do not encourage it, you know, I think there's obviously other ways of going around it, but I understand where they were coming from. This hate that they have inside them has been built in for hundreds and hundreds of years. Their parents, their grandparents, their grandparents' grandparents, their great-grandparents have dealt with these problems over time, and they've passed this message along to their kids, and to their kids' kids, to the point where people are tired of hearing the same story. It's 2020. You have to think about it. Like this is hundreds and hundreds of years. This is not just something that, you know, the George Floyd incident, you know, wasn't just the one incident. This is plenty of incidents that have led to this moment. So at the end of the day, the way I think about it is, but you know, my opinion again is, if black people can somehow use this hardships and find a positive light that's in it, the world will be theirs. You know, if the black community can see all this that is happening against them and use it, you do not know how strong and powerful that is. Okay, when the black community come together, look at what they've accomplished. You know, I don't think any other race can overcome all of the hardships that black communities have had to overcome. You know, and that's just my opinion again, but that's what is sincerely what I believe, because no race have dealt with the same hardships. You cannot compare apples to apples when it comes to this. Because you know, there's like I said, there's go from a longer period of time, and there's a lot more things that are going on. So some people go through, like I mentioned this, some people go through generation of hate. You know, this is generations. This is plural. Okay, this is generations, more than one generation. All right. So to deal with all that and still to be able to stand up for what's right, that shows strength like no other. All right, that is strength like no other. But I believe the best way to do it, and the best way to get your message across, and I know it will be hard, but the best way to handle these problems is peacefully. Okay, rioting will allow you to show your anger. Don't get me wrong, your message will probably be sent, but at the end of the day, just know that the buildings that are being burnt might actually be black owned. Okay, just know that the workers who are working in those buildings might actually be black people. So while you think you're doing what's right, you're actually stopping a black person from feeding their family or bringing food home to their family. So that's why rioting kind of has a fine line. And you know, to me, Killer Mike, I don't know if some of you guys seen that video, but the video was circulating. It kind of was out there. Killer Mike said it best when speaking to the people in Atlanta. Okay, he said, "It is your duty not to burn your own house down for anger with an enemy." So it is your duty not to burn your own house down for anger with an enemy. All right. He later said, "And now it is the time to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize, okay? When you sit there and you plot and you plan, and you actually think about what you have to do and actually think what can make a difference. You know, rioting, that's a temporary message. You want to make a difference, go into work as a politician, work in the government, do, you know, protest peacefully, shut the streets down, protest peacefully, and you will see that you will make a difference. And I mean, that's what's been going on. Just like I said, just think about all the stuff that has accomplished together peacefully. I'm just gonna kind of run through the some of the stuff that has been accomplished. First of all, you have all these statues being demolished, Confederate flags being taken down all across the country. There are new reform for the police. Okay, now a lot of police departments are going through these new reforms. Everyone is speaking out in support of the movement. You got actors, you got athletes, all people who are not even black that are speaking out of this movement and for this movement, in support of this movement. You got protests in every single state across the country. Every state, not just every state, even in other countries. Even in other countries, you know, I seen in the Middle East, you know, they're going through so many wars, but they even protest the George Floyd killing. So, you know, the power of a peaceful protest, this is the kind of difference that you can make. Bubba Wallace, the only black NASCAR racer, shutting down the Confederate flag in NASCAR, to me, that is so huge. You know, NASCAR, I'm going to be honest with you, is probably the most racist sport in America. You know, that's just my opinion, and we all kind of have an idea of that. And so, at the end of the day, for Bubba Wallace to shut that down himself, you know, and peacefully, he did it peacefully. You know, we all know the situation with him. If you didn't, you know, look it up. Bubba Wallace kind of went through a phase of a moment of racism, dealing with that. And so at the end of the day, you know, just being able to take the Confederate flags away from that sport, that is a big step. That is a big step. So that's my opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement. I kind of want to touch on that a little more towards the end. But again, black people, continue doing what you are doing. I'm so proud of the whole situation. I am so proud of the fact that we can support you as people that are of color, and even the white people and everyone else. That there are good people out there that are supporting you. So keep up the great work. And so my next topic is about police, and the reason why I want to talk about this is because I feel the need to discuss this too. Is what I don't understand, though, or what I don't see enough, is people who support the Black Lives Matter movement and who still support the police. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I 100% understand, or I can try my best to understand why people may have this built-up hate for police officers because of all the brutality that has happened. No question. I can't speak for them. I believe every officer should be charged for their actions. No matter if they did or didn't have the badge on, they probably should be charged, maybe even more, since they took an public oath to protect and serve the communities that they do. I 100% think every police station should reevaluate their training and go through a reform. Because at the end of the day, that wasn't just one officer there looking at George Floyd, okay? There are, I think, 4 officers there. But at the end of the day, you cannot judge them for their job. You judge their character, their morals. If I see someone in the street getting hurt, just as an individual, I will try to stop it. I don't have to be a teacher. I don't have to be a police officer to say, hey, stop what you're doing, okay? But like I said, that doesn't mean you just throw the whole police department away. You can't do that. You know, I believe this is an example of you really don't know what you have until it's all gone. You know, first and foremost, like I mentioned before, I come from a country of Yemen where the police presence just doesn't matter anymore. It may be there, it may not be there, but at the end of the day, the police presence in Yemen, it just straight up doesn't matter anymore. Half the country is taken by tribes, the other half is trying to be held down by government. People are really just defending themselves. People are really just protecting themselves at the end of the day. And you know what's happening now in Yemen? That country is under the worst turmoil it has ever been before. There are wars, there's looting, there's stealing, there's rioting, there's all of the above. And there's no control over what the citizens can or can't do. People are out there, literally, out there just ready to defend themselves. Secondly, the people who probably feel the worst next to the families that are grieving, that are dealing with the deaths, are the good police officers, specifically the black police officers. They are caught in a crossfire trying to defend and stand for their own people while trying to defend their workforce. Do you know that there are plenty of black police officers who feel just as bad as any other black citizen that's dealing with all these racial issues this day? You know, I have friends who are at Detroit PAL, and PAL stands for Detroit Police Athletic League, PAL, who feel terrible about what's going on. Officer George, Officer Paisley, Officer Greenwood, all of these people are African American officers. All are once were or are currently officers. I'm sorry, they all once were or they currently are officers. They all are great people. Those are people I support and I stand by. At the end of the day, you can't change my opinion on those people. Detroit PAL has done so much for me and for the players that I have coached. They've taken us on trips. They've taken us to professional games, Pistons games, Lions games, Tigers games. They've done events that give back to the community, welcome back to school stuff. You know, they've given back to the community in so many different ways that at the end of the day, and it's not just for our team, it's plenty of teams in outside of the Detroit and surrounding Detroit neighborhoods. You know, they serve thousands and thousands of kids in Detroit and the surrounding cities. And it's not just black officers. I have white officer friends who I will stand by as well. Officer Amel, Officer David Boudiaje. I grew up with my whole life with Amel. You know, one of our best friends was a black kid, Vincent. You know, we all we did was hoop. We went out to eat together, and just a great person Amel is. You know, he's just a great person, and that's someone I will stand by. And yes, he's an officer. My opinion does not change on Amel. You know, again, one of my best friends is David Boudiaje. All right, he you know, I went to school with him at MSU. We lived together for 3 years. You know, at the end of the day, he kept talking about is how he wants to make the world a better place. You know, when I spoke to him, this is before he was officially an officer. This was his sophomore, junior year. We'll have our friend talks. You know, we'll have our moments. And like I said, all he kept mentioning is, you know, he wants to make the world a better place. You know, so at the end of the day, you can't judge these people because they're wearing a badge. Judge them off of their character. You cannot change my mind on these people, these officers, because I know officers who are great people. All right, and I will stand by those people. And then at the end of the day, like I said, yeah, you can't change my mind. And you should judge people as an individual. You judge them as their character. You cannot judge them because of the badge that they're wearing. All right, that was a bad decision on people's part. That's the individual's fault, okay? It is not the police's fault. I feel like, you know, we the people, we shouldn't be afraid of the police. That's honestly my opinion. You know, the police are here to protect and serve. They are not here to instill fear in the citizens they're supposed to defend. Now, I understand when you're driving, you see the police. I feel like we shouldn't be scared, even though I'm probably one of those people that be like, hey, slow down, or hey, be careful. You know, people might say, hey, you never had a bad run with the cops. That is not true. I'm going to tell you a quick story that I had with the police that can kind of maybe instill hate in me. But again, I didn't care that it happened because I know that it was the individuals I was dealing with. It wasn't the representation of police. So I'm going to quickly give you guys a story. When I was in high school, I was driving with my friends, and I was the driver. And it was one on the passenger side, 3 in the back seat. So 4 other of my friends. And one of my buddies seen a police officer. And I kind of had the music a little loud, and kind of turned it down because I didn't want to kind of get the police attention because my music was playing really loud. And then my friend was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Hey, there's police right there." So he's being stubborn, screamed out, "F the police," through the window. The police officer heard it. The police officer pulled to the side. I was hoping like, hey, maybe there's nothing of it. Whatever, it is what it is. I kind of pulled over. And, I drove past the police officer, and then he kind of had me pull over. And long story short, that police officer called about 2 other police officers for backup. They took us out of the car. We were at one of the main gas stations in my hometown of Hamtramck. And it was just a terrible scene because it looked like that we were people that had illegal substances in our car, the way that they kind of had us out in the car, questioning us. They were in our faces, kind of screaming in our faces, telling us, who said F the police. And we kind of didn't want to say who said it. So now they started threatening taking us to jail. And, you know, we didn't know at the moment that that's something that it is freedom of expression. You know, I guess we could say what we want, even though I wasn't a fan of it. You know, I'm not the type of person that would scream that out. But at the end of the day, you know, they kind of questioned us. They took us out of the car. They were screaming at us. Like I said, we were at a gas station. There was about 3 police cars, so about 5 officers altogether. And it was just an embarrassing moment. You know, it was an embarrassing moment. And one of my friends finally admitted it. You know, we didn't want to tell, and we were ready to go to jail, I guess. You know, I was not going to say anything. And one of my friends finally stood up and said, like, you know what, I said it. And then they were ripping him, getting in his face, you know, stuff that I thought was very unnecessary. And, you know, and at the end of the day, they let us go. They let us go because once we realized that we really didn't do anything wrong. I mean, obviously you shouldn't scream out F the police. I don't think that's right. I don't think anyone should scream that out like that. But, you know, we really didn't do anything illegal. And so they let us go. So, you know, I was kind of disappointed at that moment. And I was mad. But that didn't mean I changed my idea of the whole police. I still knew that, you know, those individuals, they took advantage of a moment. You know, we were young. We were teenagers. We kind of didn't know the law. So they did take advantage of the moment. Was I disappointed? Yeah. But that didn't mean I changed my mind on the police, you know? So at the end of the day, like I said, you can't judge the whole police force based off the actions of some bad police officers. Every group of people have their bad apples. Muslim people, Arabic people, you guys know how it was for that time period where there were so many terrorist events happening across the world. And, you know, the media would automatically say, you know, Muslims. And we kind of feel like we were labeled as terrorists. It got to the point where I was almost used to being labeled as terrorists. That's how bad it was. That does not mean that one group of bad apples, they do not represent us as Muslims at the end of the day. You know, there are teachers out there. There are teachers, and mark my word, there are still teachers out there. I mean, I am a teacher, by the way. There are teachers out there who would sit and tell your student that they will never amount to nothing in life, that you will never become anything. Teachers, the ones that are supposed to educate the students, will tell your kids to their face that they will never become anything in life. Does that mean that we should just shut down all the teachers? You know, does that mean that you should hate all of the teachers? No. It's that individual that you should judge. I mean, really, we shouldn't judge anybody, but it's that character that you should question, that specific person. There are policymakers out there, you know, politicians who are making decisions behind our backs to make sure that this system that is broken, if you ask me, that it stays broken, so that they can continue to succeed while the people that suffer continue to suffer. You know, there are doctors out there who see your insurance and see that it can't cover. They will let you die on the hospital bed just because your insurance doesn't cover. And I know there's deep problems right there, but at the end of the day, as humanity, you cannot judge all the doctors. You look that person and say, hey, or the management system and say, hey, they're the ones that you can question. Do not question the doctors, all the doctors, just because off of one person's decision. So at the end of the day, judge the person themselves, question the person themselves. Look past the police gear and look at the individual and judge that person's character. Judge the bystanders who watch and let the deaths happen as well. Judge their moral character. But going back to the police is supposed to protect and serve part. This is one of those instances where they could do 9 things right, but if they did one thing wrong, they're judged by the one thing. Do you know if you are in an emergency situation? By the way, I learned this in my criminal justice class at Michigan State University. Do you know that if you are in an emergency situation, if you flag down the police, they'll turn their sirens on and take you wherever it is that you gotta go, okay? And let me give you a story behind that. So while I was at Michigan State, I think it was my sophomore year. It was my sophomore year. You know, I was kind of going through some personal stress moments. I had like 3 exams that week. You know, I just had a lot going on in my life, and I felt like I wasn't ready for the exam that I was about to take the next morning. So I was kind of stressed out, and I started panicking, and I started pacing. So my buddies were in their apartment, and I kind of walked out of the apartment and just started pacing in the hallway because I felt my heart beating very strong, you know, and beating fast, and you know, I was kind of, I felt my palms being sweaty, and I started to get shortness and breath. And it got to the point where it was so bad that I had to tell my cousin, like, I gotta, like, we gotta go. Like, I'm feeling something. I started making prayers. I started making dua. I started reading reading ayats in the Quran. I really sincerely thought that I was about to die. I just felt this anxiety on me that I've never felt before. And I sincerely felt that, like, like, it's over for me. So as we're in the car, my cousin, I guess he's tried to drive me to the hospital because I don't know what is going on with me. As we're in the car, I'm sitting there and I'm telling him, like, hey, tell my mom I love her. Tell my dad I love her. Tell my family I love her. Tell everybody I love them. And he's telling me, chill out, man, chill out. And because I literally feel like my heart is about to shut down. I literally felt like that my whole body was about to completely shut down. And we seen a police officer. And then I remembered what I learned in my criminal justice class, which is what my teacher told me is, if you see a police officer, you flag them down. They will take you wherever it is that you need to go to. They'll turn on their sirens. You can speed behind them. And I screamed at my cousin. I'm like, please, just pull up to the police officer. He said, why? I said, please, go. And he pulled up on the police officer, and I told him my situation. I said, I don't know what's going on with me. I need a doctor. I need a hospital. And he immediately turned on his sirens, the police officer. And basically, he turned on his sirens and started escorting us to the hospital. And immediately, without hesitation, escorted us to the hospital, started driving and flying to the hospital. And luckily, we found the ambulance while we were on the way. The police officer flagged the ambulance down. I got in the ambulance truck. They later told me that it was a panic attack. I was having a panic attack. I did not pass out, which was a surprise. But to be honest with you, what probably helped me in that whole situation was the officer calming me down and then me being able to get in the ambulance. I don't know how I would have reacted if I were to faint. I don't know how I would have reacted if I were to pass out. But at the end of the day, what calmed me down and what helped me in that situation was the officer helping me and getting me into that area. So, like I said, you have to understand that there are bad people out there. There are people that you can look at and say, hey, this person is, not right, but don't judge them for what they do. Judge them for who they are as an individual. Okay, and that's my thoughts on the police situation. And my last topic is racism. This topic is very deep. I just want you guys to understand that racism exists throughout the world. Racism has always existed. It's just now being caught on camera, and it's just now being put on blast on social media. I believe the best way to fight racism is by building relationships with one another. That is the best way to fight racism, is by building relationships with one another. Okay? First, before we can even get educated on each other's beliefs, culture, race, we first need to be honest with ourselves and realize that racism is an issue for all of the races. All right? How's it going, Carol? Thank you for waving. Shout out to Boom also watching as well. Again, I'm going to repeat this again. First, before we can even get educated on each other's beliefs, cultures, and race, we first need to be honest with ourselves and realize racism is an issue for all of the races. I am saying this as an Arabic person. Arabic people can be racist. Everyone can be racist. We have to be honest with ourselves. Everyone has their own form of racism. We then have to want to be educated on the topics of different cultures, of different race. You have to want to be educated on that stuff. Then we can get educated about one another. Okay? You have to understand that racism exists. You have to want to be educated. Because if you don't want to learn, you're going to be closed-minded. Racism will always exist. Alright? Then you can start being educated on what's going on. Alright? So, like I said, building relationships is the best way of doing it. But the biggest thing to fight racism is building relationships. I played sports from when I was a kid up until I graduated out of high school. 90% of my teammates were black. We grew a brotherhood with one another. I loved my teammates. We loved each other. We were all close with one another. That's just how it was. We built a family foundation. Because when we're on that field, your color doesn't matter. At the end of the day, are you going to defend me? Are you going to back me up when I'm at quarterback, are you going to block the people so that I don't get hit? And for the most part, that's what was the case. We looked past color at the end of the day. I still talk to most of my boys till this day. I joked with my brother. I had a lineman, Greg. He was a black lineman in high school. About 6'3", 6'4", probably one of our best linemen that we had at Hamtramck High School. I joked around with my brother and I said, till this day, he still blocks for me. We pull up in the gas station, he was like, hey, watch out, that's my quarterback. We joke around. That's the brotherhood. Look past the color. That's the brotherhood that happened. Meech is my man. He was the running back while I was the quarterback at Hamtramck High School. Till this day, we are boys. We clown. We have a good time. I used to drop him off at 7 Mile on Outer Drive every single day after practice. Every single day after practice, I used to drop him off on 7 Mile on Outer Drive. I was a little worried sometimes, but he used to always tell me, hey, man, don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it. And obviously, once I got used to it, I knew that, hey, at the end of the day, there was nothing to worry about. There was nothing to worry about. I was just me, my insecurities, I guess. But that's what I'm trying to tell you guys, is at the end of the day, I knew that my brothers had my back, and we never looked at color. We never looked at the color. You have to look past the color. But what I don't like is the generalization that one certain race is racist against another, because that is not true. As I mentioned before, every single race can be racist. Racism exists everywhere. But the generalization that I'm referring to is that all white people are racist. Do you know by saying that the comment itself is actually racist? You're being racist towards the white people, okay? But let me tell you why I can't agree with your statement that all white people are racist, all right? When I moved into college my freshman year, okay, we had, my roommate, it was a blind roommate. Basically, you didn't know who your roommate was going to be. So my roommate was a white guy named Troy Hollenbeck. Shout out to Troy Hollenbeck if you ever get to watch this video. I'm Facebook friends with him right now. So let me just tell you a quick story about my buddy Troy Hollenbeck, okay? When he arrived, in his bucket, he had a Confederate flag in there. So when I seen it, I was kind of dizzy. I was like, oh, shoot, all right, it is what it is. Me, I never, it is what it is. You believe what you want to believe in. I'm going to believe in what I want to believe in. Let's just not bother each other. That's my mindset at the end of the day, You can believe what you want. I'm going to believe what I want, all right? So, I seen that, and I seen it, and I knew what it was. I was like, all right, well, I guess, that's the situation I'm going to be dealing with. That's the situation I'm going to be dealing with. So, throughout the year, we grew closer. I never spoke about religion. I never spoke about race. We both never spoke about religion. We both never spoke about race. We just were individuals, 2 college freshmen, just trying to make it through college, okay? We got closer. And I remember this moment like it was yesterday. It was around January, and I was doing some freelance writing for the State News, which is the local newspaper or the school newspaper at Michigan State. So I was doing some freelance writing, and I wrote an article that said, what is a Muslim? So this was back in 2010. This is a time period where Muslims were still being blamed for every terrorist action that is going on in the world. So I felt like, this will be my first story. I'm going to explain to people who I am and what my beliefs are and who we are as people, as Muslims. So I titled the article, What is a Muslim? And I kind of talked about what we represent and what we believe in. And in the comment section, you had a lot of people that didn't like what I was saying. Disagreed with what I was saying, kind of going hard on some of the things that I mentioned. And I was in my room, and I remember like it was yesterday. So I'm in my room, and I'm kind of reading the comments on my laptop, and he's right next to me. And I know he's reading the article as well, because he just told me, he's like, hey, man, I like your article. And I guess he finally got a chance to reach the comment section, and he started tearing up. Troy Hollenbeck, the guy that walked in with the Confederate flag, who I call him a brother too at the end of the day, he started tearing up. He started tearing up because he couldn't believe that people will talk about me, this person who he got to know so well, the way that they were talking about me. And he finally shared with me saying that, he grew up with a family that believed in a certain thing that would be considered racist today, and how it was wrong and how he felt terrible about it. and how he felt terrible for me that I was dealing with this situation. And at that moment, you know, chills went through my body that he's sitting here defending me, a person that, you know, he knew about for 4 or 5 months, but he's ready to break down every single belief that he was taught as a kid just because he met someone for 4 or 5 months that changed his mind on every colored person in the world. You know, that tells you what relationships can do with people. Building relationships can knock racism down one by one. My roommates who were, you know, I had my cousin with me and my cousin, and then 6 other roommates that were all white. You know, you had Eric, Kevin, Matt, Dave, Corey, and Joe. Each and every one of them. Those are my brothers till this day. Till this day. My freshman year, I used to go tailgate with my buddies. My buddy Eric Rotonia and his family. They used to have a tailgate of food. The first time I went there, you know, everything was pork because that's what they ate. And I didn't mention anything. The mom came up to me and said, "Why aren't you eating?" And I kind of told her, I was like, you know, that's pork and I don't eat pork. And she was so mad at herself. I promise you guys, you can mark my words. She was so mad at herself that for the next 4 years, not just for the next week, for the next 4 years, she had my own table of food, of beef, chicken, anything that you can imagine of food for me to eat at every tailgate that we ever went to. Every single tailgate that I went to from that point forward, after the first tailgate, they had food for me to eat just so she could accommodate to her son's Muslim friend. All right? That's just another story, just to give you guys an example. My man, Matt Cassidy, that's another brother, another one of my roommates, okay? Matt Cassidy, you know, his father is like a father figure to me as well. You know, this guy right here, I don't even know where to start of what these guys do. First of all, yeah, that's love. Thanks, Boom. That is love. Let me tell you this one, Boom. You already know Terry Cassidy, Boom. Let me tell you about Terry Cassidy for those of you that don't know who he is. First of all, Matt Cassidy is like a brother to me. You know, anytime I need something, he's there for me. You know, he's one of those people that you just want to talk to because he's just a great person. He's just a great person, Matt Cassidy. But my man Matt Cassidy's dad, Terry Cassidy, I met him once. And the first time I met him, this is so funny, I'm only laughing because he came up to me and said, "What is going on in Yemen?" Because that's when the uprisings were happening in the Arabic Middle East. And that's when I met him. And that's the first time I met him. Is he said, "What is going on in Yemen?" And I was like, wow, like this guy from Wisconsin, by the way. He's from Wisconsin. He's from man, I forgot the city. But when I remember, I'm going to mention it. But anyways, a city in Wisconsin. And he's talking about Yemen. I'm like, how does this guy know what's going on in Yemen? And so we kind of clicked from there. So let me just give you guys some things that this guy has done. He's taken my whole family to Lambeau Field. Terry Cassidy paid for tickets, paid for hotel, everything like that so that we can go to Lambeau Field and watch the Green Bay Packers play against the Detroit Lions. When I published my book, he bought 300 copies of the books himself just so he could pass it out to people in Wisconsin and spread the message that I guess I wanted to spread. My man Terry Cassidy has sponsored the Hamtramck Panthers baseball team. Hamtramck, again, his company, BC Adhesives, is based out in Wisconsin. He has been my gold sponsor for back-to-back years. The gold sponsor is the top sponsor for back-to-back years. That means he has sponsored thousands of dollars to our baseball team. Till this day, he will text me and say, "How are you doing? How's your daughter doing? How's your wife doing?" Just checking in on me. As a person, and again, based in Wisconsin, just at the end of the day, that's just the brotherhood that we had. You know, and that's just the people that they are. So at the end of the day, when people sit here and say all white people are racist, don't tell me that. Don't ever tell me that. I work with people at Hanley International Academy. My mentor is an African-American lady, Miss McPherson. She is the principal of Hanley International Academy. She's my mentor. I work with white people who I consider them sisters and brothers at the end of the day. They sit here at Hanley, we have a family kind of environment. So at the end of the day, you are the problem if you think that about people, because that is your character that's being questioned. You have to look past the people and look past what they do and actually judge an individual or actually question an individual's character, because you have to be okay with getting to know somebody from a different race, from a different color, from a different background, from a different religion. It's you that you have to question at the end of the day. There's a stereotype that Arabic people can't get along with Jewish people, and with all the stuff that's going on in Palestine and Israel. But let me tell you a quick story about my man Richard Resnick. Okay, Richard Resnick, by the way, for those that don't know, he's a Jewish person, Jewish man. He's a white man. He is the guy that runs, Detroit Pals baseball and basketball over there at Detroit Pal. And let me tell you a quick story about my man Richie Rich. Okay, Richard Resnick, and I don't want no family to get offended. Okay, I'm not saying family, but Richard Resnick has done more for me as a Jewish person, and I know religion and all that doesn't matter, but I want you guys to know what I'm trying to say at the end of the day about looking past a person's beliefs and all that and judge a person off of who they are. Richard Resnick has done more for me than any of my Yemeni or Arabic friends that are out there. Again, I'm going to repeat that again. Richard Resnick has done more for me than any of my Arabic or Yemeni friends that are out there. He has been the middleman to why we got trips to Ohio, my baseball team. He hooked us up with Officer Paisley and Officer George, and they're the ones that came with us on our trip to Ohio for 3 days. They took us on their Detroit Pal buses. They slept with us. We had police protection the 3 days because we had retired and one current police officer with us. They didn't charge us for gas. He took us to Detroit Lions. He had my nephew throw out the first pitch at the Detroit Tigers Stadium. He has countlessly given me Detroit Tigers tickets, Red Wings tickets, Lions tickets. This is the man behind it all. He just took about 6 of my little nephews, brothers, and cousins to a golf outing where they got a chance to listen to some professional golfers and golf out in the River Rouge Park out there on Thursday, just 2 days ago. Anytime there's something going on, my man Richie Rich is the first person that reaches out to me and lets me know. You think he looks at my color? You think Richard Resnick looks at my race? So at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. And in order to fight racism, you have to ask yourself, number one, do you understand that racism exists? Number two, do you want to be educated? And then number three, get educated. So before you close your mind on someone because they have a different skin color than you or believe in something different than you, just know you're probably closing the door on someone that could change your life for the better. Lately, we've been focusing on the hate people have towards one another, when in reality, there are far more people who love and get along with one another than the ones who don't. So don't let those moments be your moment. Focus on the positive, not the negative. Love wins all the time. Love sees no color. So the way I want to end this is like this. But this whole talk is about the Black Lives Matter movement, because it's their time. It's our time as people of different race, skin color, and beliefs to listen. The fact that it's 2020 and the black community is asking for their voices to be heard is very sad in my eyes. Also, please do not compare. Please do not compare your problems to the black people's problems. Sorry for my French, but that is so dumb and so disrespectful. No one is saying that your problems don't matter. What we're saying, what the Black Lives Matter movement is saying, is help us through our problems so we can eventually help you through yours. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, the black people's problems have been going on far longer than anyone else's. Their list is far longer than anyone else's. So it's time that we listen. But after we listen, we must take action, because listening is not enough. And if you don't want to take action, please stay quiet. Because we don't want to hear about your problems. We don't want to hear about you comparing your problems to their problems. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to hear that. It's not your time. It's not your time. Okay? Indianapolis Colts linebacker Darius Leonard, who is a black linebacker, by the way, said an amazing quote that I agree with 100%. The quote said, "People say, what about blue lives? People say, what about white lives? We're not just saying only Black Lives Matter. Right now, we're saying that we need y'all help. If blacks could have solved this problem, it would have been solved a long time ago. We need the non-blacks to step up and talk to your family, tag a friend, and let them know that racism has to end." Talk about strong words right there. For those of you who are wondering why I picked this time to speak, what better day to talk about racism than on the day that America earned its independence? Because I love this country. I love this country. So on this day of independence, let's all try and have a conversation about ending this pandemic that's been going on for way too long. Let's make sure we are all free of racism and we are all free of hate. And if you're wondering, oh, he's only saying this because of the Black Lives Matter movement. He just wants to do it because of the Black Lives Matter movement. Just know I always believed that Black Lives Matter way before this movement. Black lives have always mattered around this household. So at the end of the day, you're the ones that are finally realizing it. Thank you. This was another talk on Motivate Me 313. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a great day and have a great holiday.